The last part of our day, ladies and gentlemen, is where the 4 country managers will join me up here for a short discussion. Again, questions from the floor invited and welcomed. And if you would please welcome Robert Frimpong, Wintershall, Nordsee MD, Anders Nymann, Hess MD, Flemming, Nielsen, Dong E&P, and Patrick Gilly, Maersk Oil, Danish Business Unit MD. Welcome, gentlemen. Please, you take that one.
Yeah. I don't want that question in advance.
No, that was a question for someone else. So, gentlemen, welcome. Thanks for joining me up here. First question. From the excellent presentations and the rich conversations today, what stands out for you the most? What resonates with you? Flemming.
I think that probably at least one thing we were talking about here in the end, and that's about seeking insight and stay curious. We cannot believe in systems in the way that they have to be static, and I think it was mentioned before that you need constantly to overlook them. But you can never be saved by systems, so you need to have the people involvement like we talked about. And if you don't stay curious on, I don't understand this, or can you explain this to me a bit more? If you don't have that culture built in, then we cannot avoid incident accidents and we cannot make proper risk assessment. And it's not only the risk at hand, but it's also the magnitude of the risk and the consequence of the risks.
So staying curious and involving people.
Yeah.
I think we need to go also back to where Emma started, which is why we do this. We come to work, we want to stay safe, we want to go back safely. And I think Emma's kickoff for us showed us what the impact is when that doesn't happen. And that's what resonates then for the rest of our lives. It resonates for all our loved ones. And to the back of our minds, that's what we should always keep there.
Got it. Anders?
I think particularly the points about connecting with the work front and understanding what goes on where the work is done. I think a really key challenge for a leader is to go and understand and support at the work front and see the process. What are the problems? How can you help solve the problem? Because people want to work safe. They want to follow the process, but sometimes the process isn't good enough. You need to help close those gaps, solve those problems. So I think that's one really important point. The other thing that resonates is we've driven the incident rates pretty low in this industry, and there's thankfully far between incidents. Yes. So the learning opportunity for incidents is diminishing. So that's really a dilemma between things happening and learning. We don't want things to happen, but we want to learn from things
when they do.
So what do you do about that? Then it becomes, how do you standard good work? How do you help optimize your processes all the time? Grooming the positive stories, as John said. How do you do that? How do you go to the work front and help standardize that in a simple way where you don't have a pack of paper, and do that and continuously improve? So instead of monitoring and having KPIs for time between incidents, you start having KPIs for how good a process is, what are the deviations from the standard. If there's no standard, you can have no improvement.
Right. Got it. Patrick, for you, what stood out?
For me, it was really about the people. I think the sentence about the people are the solution and not the problem was, I think, is quite powerful. I think it was through the entire day actually that somewhere it's lying with them. And but I was also hearing, the challenge regarding procedures, hard hats. Should you wear it, not wear it? And I must say that right now in our industry, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of distraction, and routine jobs and distraction is a very dangerous cocktail. And sometimes systems, procedures, checklists are also there to help that, to avoid lapse. So a lot of thought-provoking, actually, presentation today. I mean, plenty of things,
yes.
but at the end, it's about the people and just finding the right balance between how you put the trust in them and how you protect them. When I was starting to be exposed to process safety, I remember being told is as much about protecting the installation from the people than the people from the installation.
Yes. Yeah. Got it. One of the things that I asked you to consider coming into today was, what are you, on a personal level, what are you most concerned about? What most bothers you at the moment?
That's, I mean, following up on what I said, a lot of distraction, a lot of uncertainty, exciting time, but a need for change, and just making sure that we help people manage that. So that's one element. The other one is what is also covered, which is burying our workforce with procedures without really thinking how we roll out them. So we are quite proactive. We see problems, and we say about learning from incidents. And in general, when you learn from incidents, you come up with a lot of suggestions to fill a gap, adjust a procedure, but it's not there because you have just identified that it's
yes.
It's implemented. It takes time to be implemented, and we have a tendency to just think that those guys just can handle it, when actually what they have to handle is everyday job. So
yes. Got it.
It's my other concern right now.
Got it.
I think in continuation of that, you can also say that Emma Curry was talking about that the workforce was being distracted, so to say, about bureaucracy and rules and regulations. And it was very interesting. She said there was no time to think and no time to be. And it really comes back to about being present, like you talked about. And we have so many disturbances, social media and other things, what's happening with the family. So I think one of the worries I have, and one of the things that we as leaders can convey to everyone, is how to be present. Because if you're not present, we're not doing what we're supposed to do. There was an advert in Danish television about traffic safety, and they said, drive a car when you drive your car, which is actually quite simple, and it also applies for our industry. So I think helping understanding that is important. At the moment, as you probably know, oil and gas is in a sales process. So for us, over the last months, it's been so important to talk with people about not only the disturbance of a lot of things in your private life, social media and so on, but even the fact that a company is up for sale. Really emphasize the importance of talking to people about being present and focusing on the job at hand.
Yeah, got it, got it. Robert?
I mean, to extend from that, I think the way I thought about it was in terms of the unknown unknowns. We can prepare for a lot of things by putting in place all the procedures, the framework, as it were, to enable people to come to work and work safely. But as you're saying, they have to be present, and being present means they're also able to think ahead of things that may come at them that they haven't thought about. So to me, it's really about, what I tend to worry about is, what have we not thought through? What have we not thought about? What is it that could come out of the blue that then the expectation is the trust one has in the team to be able to react to that? Because as John was saying, it's not about following procedures per se. It's about having the skills and the capabilities to be able to react in a situation that is variable, that is changing, and that's then where you hope you have the trust, or you've trained the people enough, and that they are able to think for themselves and be able to get themselves through a particular situation. So to my mind, that's where one spends a lot of time thinking about how do we cope with those unknowns.
Right, right.
Yeah, for me, I think Emma said it was so many little things. And that brings me back to drifting and normalization. We have an industry where we've continuously learned, we've made really good systems, we have procedures, we have lessons learned, we have risk assessment, we have management systems, we have our process safety where we look at integrity of our systems, we look at operating within the limits and competence of people. So we have all that laid out, good designs, And all those systems are great, but are we following them? How do we know we're following them? So what keeps me awake is going and ensuring, understanding, helping people follow the systems, make sure the barriers are intact so that so many little things doesn't become the Swiss T's lined up. So that's really helping the workforce, going to where the work is done, understanding and seeing, I can't do this work this way because it says this isn't a procedure, but it doesn't work. So then we change it, then we risk assess it and get the process right. So helping people follow the systems, that's really, and making sure we don't have those weak barriers anywhere.
And it's a slightly naive question, I must admit, but how do you satisfy yourself that procedures are being followed?
What I do personally,
yourself.
Myself on a personal level, I commit to going to where work is done. I commit to go offshore. I will go to the corner of the platform and talk to the scaffolder about how he does his work. Just stand and watch, stand and look, and understand the work process, understand the problems, talk, understand how it's done, take the problems back and try and help to make the process more efficient, more safe. So that's one example. I'll sit down with the control room operator and look at the inhibit log to understand, why is that inhibit on? Well, otherwise I can't do my work. Well, we need to do an engineering change, risk assess it. So I will go and really deeply engage in the work process to the extent I have time.
Sure, got it.
But the questions you should have asked was not, do you follow procedures? The question should be, how do you make sure your procedures makes value and increase safety?
How do you make sure
because that is a far more interesting conversation to have if you're offshore, when you're talking to your manager.
Yes, sure.
Sorry, but
no, it's fine.
What's your problem?
So, and then how do you ensure that?
Because you have the conversation, you have the dialogue, and you don't. And that's a part of way of continuous improvement. You have that dialogue, you have to understand it.
Yeah, got it. Questions from the floor? Come on, they're just country managers. Yes, sir. We got a microphone. We do.
Yes, this question is a little the same. Last year you were sitting talking about vertical, horizontal integration of subcontractors. Are you now sharing over the table your incidents or near misses to the other companies so that they don't have the same possible opportunity to have an accident which you just have prevented? So are you a safety department speaking together, sharing this year?
So I'm a bit new in the job, so maybe they will answer for me, but I guess we share. But the first point of sharing is through the investigation, actually. That's for me the first element. The second element is when you're an operator, actually the contractors are a fantastic source of learning because they work for several operators. So for me, they are the best channel in terms of information, and some of them are certainly better safety records, and I think Lamberto demonstrated it, have certainly better safety record than some of the operators. So it's a two-way. It's not just what happened to us on our installation, but also what they see, what they do. And I try to learn as much as I can from them.
We have through Oil Gas Denmark, we have our SSC committee and we have environmental subcommittees and so on. So we have environmental managers and leaders meeting between the companies frequently. But I would like to add to you, and you're absolutely right, it is as much as we need to talk together, we need to make sure the suppliers talk together. So I know in Dong, I know in Maersk and Hess, we have supplier days. And we just had one recently. And having that room filled of all the people and exchanging information was fantastic. They were talking about checklists, what checklist works and what doesn't work. What add value to me and what is just a checklist to cover my ass, sorry for my French. Okay. But I mean, those kind of conversations are important to have, right? And I saw that in that room the whole day, and it was fantastic to see. And we had much more people at the sharp end in the room that day, and that created value.
mean, where we also see long-term value add is where we have long-term contractors that are partners that have been with us on our platforms for a long time, so the crews are integrated into our crews. Then there's a lot of share and there's a lot of learning in terms of what incidents are taking place, how we do the near-miss reporting, and what then the remedies for those are. So where you have a long-term relationship, then there's a lot of interaction that is ongoing.
I think there's a lot of improvement we can also do on pre-job planning and standardization of how we engage contractors for going across the industry, so that each company have their own process for contractor engagement and pre-planning of jobs. If we can somehow, more work to do on doing that in a more systematic way, making it easy for the industry. This is the expectations when you go, making that one expectation as opposed to 4 operators. So there's a lot of improvement we can do still.
And is there a forum to create, or a number of fora to create to make that kind of thing happen?
Yeah, we have that. For example, through OGD, one example is we were talking about between the companies. We had different rules to testing for drugs in the airport. I know it's a small topic, but anyhow. And we talked about it, and we actually decided that the way that Maersk was doing it was the appropriate way, so we standardized that approach in the airport. And likewise, we're talking about other things. Now, you have to remember, when we come down to checklist, it can be very individual from platform to platform.
Right.
But still, these conversations are taking place. Can we do better? Absolutely, and we have to. But that's what this forum creates also. If we look at this event as a whole, and we look back through the years, just the fact that we are talking about these subjects, that we have a common language, also enables us to have these kind of conversations. So it all helps.
Sure.
I think there are 3 or 4 areas we've been doing lifting and hoisting, trying to standardize how lifting equipment, preparation of checks, how you handle cargo when it goes offshore, because it can end up in various locations. So it's important to have the same expectation and standard for how that's done.
So there are some examples beginning to emerge of how you are collaborating, standardizing, sharing. I mean, a number of years ago, people would have said, well, they might as well be on 4 different planets. But now it sounds like there's something different beginning to happen.
Yeah.
And it happens not only in OGD, but also across the water in the Netherlands, in the Norgepa. So there, within the operator group, there is a lot of collaboration ongoing, and that's something we also are able to then discuss then outside of that to the UK and to Denmark.
Right. Now, a question to the audience. Are you seeing it? What the collaboration and the sharing that they're describing? Yes, all right. All right, we got 2 yeses. We'll take 2 yeses. That's good.
It's a starting point.
Yes, it is a good starting point. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, please, back in the back corner.
All right, hi.
Hi there.
We've been talking a lot about sharing and being on site and making sure that the leaders know what's happening on the floor.
Yep.
But how do you make sure, as a leader, that the employees doesn't feel like it's an inspection, but a conversation?
There's a question.
Exactly.
How do you make sure that it's a conversation, not an inspection?
I think open-ended questions, the how's, the what, trying to understand is very key, so that you're there. You talk about curiosity. I think that's a key trait, that you need to do that, a kind of coaching behavior. Yeah. Understanding what the problems are to try and make it easier. You need to have a value proposition with you. If you come for an inspection, you don't have that. You need to somehow give help to the process, so you take something away and support.
When I go offshore in general, I don't go with an agenda. I always say that I'm at the disposal of the platform. So actually I come and I'm at their disposal.
The question is, do they believe you?
Yes, they have to. But I think it's about helping others and showing that you want to listen. Then it's about the trust.
Yes.
And the only way you can build that trust is first giving. and then you will receive.
Yeah.
But of course, you can also display that you're caring, or you're really interested. You want to understand the detail. I mean, this connection between the top and the bottom, and taking just the time to sit nearby the front and the sharp end of your organization, and really understanding what they have to deal with, what are the trade-offs or the challenges that they have, the question. And when you do that, people just open up. You may see a weakness, but it might not be necessarily in that person. Again, we shouldn't be ashamed to have, I mean, no, if someone doesn't display, I would say, competency or knowledge, the organization should be ashamed of that, because we put that person at risk, and not that person should be ashamed of not having it. Yeah, not having it.
Yeah, got it.
But I think it's important that it is exactly what it is. It is a conversation. And I think Edgar Schein, in his 6 culture embedding mechanisms, if you notice 4 of them, he was talking about how you perceived and observed.
Yes.
Not what you said.
Yes, or did. Yes.
Or did.
Perceived and observed, yes.
And that comes back to the conversation, because in fact, these are the exact questions you should ask after you've been out there. How was this for you? How was it for you, for me to be out here talking to you guys?
Yeah.
Did it give you an insight? Did it support you? And I don't only ask them, I also ask their manager afterwards. What did they say afterwards, after the visit?
Yeah.
What was the feedback?
They said you were great, boss.
No, but...
Yeah. To follow on from Flemming, I think that's exactly along the right lines. Of course, at the beginning, the perception is that of an inspection. I think that's very hard to avoid when you're doing this. But after a period of a year or 2 years or further down the line, when you've consistently gone back and had those conversations and actually recalled some of the things that you said you'd take care of from the previous visits, and you're able to then move on to other topics and get those done, then it moves towards the line of more trust and more understanding and more of a conversation that makes it rather the visit less of an inspection than the initial perception was at when you first went out. So you need to be constantly present, you need to be constantly engaged, and you need to keep coming back and follow up on what you said. And as you said, then also check back what has been the feedback, and has that feedback, is that perception that it's more of a visit than less of an inspection, or is it the other way around?
It needs to become the way things are done around here. It shouldn't just be the senior, the MD coming. It should be the way all workers and leaders engage on every level of the organization. The understanding, the curiosity, the trying to learn and offer support kind of behavior should instill the whole organization in my view.
Yeah. On the matter of curiosity, what is there for you to be most curious about in your role? What is it for you to be most curious about?
For me, this conference is all about reaching zero, meaning zero harm, incident accidents and so on. And it was mentioned several times when you go, and Anders mentioned it, well, when you come that far down in number of incident accidents and things you analyze on, how is it you, first of all, stay at that level, and how do you make sure you improve even further?
Yes.
So for me, and it was actually mentioned by Dick, he was talking about looking out for weak signals, and Taff mentioning being constantly alert to sources of future failure. So what are the weak signals? What are the red flags? And how do we pick those up? Because in fact, when things are going very well, that's also when you need to worry.
Yeah.
Because what is it then you don't see?
Yes.
So for me, it's about picking those things up, and it's not done by statistics anymore. And KPIs. It's about a lot of other things like we talked about today.
Sure. Got it.
I think you need to be curious about the problems, the problems that are in the processes that are running. So when is it not possible to do it the way it's supposed to? When is the deviation to plan? Understand those gaps and be curious, trying to learn from those and correct them. I think that's really important.
I think for me to be curious about, and I think we all should be, is when we've had those conversations or we've walked away from what are audits or inspections or and so on. Yeah. When we've done that, what are people doing, thinking? And I think that's what we remain curious about, because that's the part that is unknown to us in a direct form, and that's where we need to try and influence also that that they are, as you say, present and doing the things that we believe them to be doing, trust them to be doing, and hope them to be doing.
Yeah, this distortion of the message. I mean, this cost management example. I mean, typically, I mean, you say something or you don't say something. Actually, sometimes as much as what you don't say, what you don't do. And how this is being translated, what kind of interpretation it takes. That's really an element where, I mean, I join Robert on that. I mean, really understanding how it lands actually and how people take that in their day-to-day. And also understanding the decision and the way they go through decision, because they face challenges and dilemma all the time. We do at high level, but in the organization right now, every layer face that because I think we manage by constraints. So by trying, and that's where you also try to push innovations, as you put constraint and you try to make people find a way through the impossible by something a bit different. Yes. So how do they reach that point? And sometimes it's a fantastic outcome, and sometimes it's just a bit ugly and not, maybe leading to an incident. And that's what is interesting to me.
Sure. Is there another question? Fons, please.
It's a question that relates to, again, Professor Stein, on the competing values, and just wondering if one of the country managers would like to share an example of where they really struggled with the dilemma, where they felt, for example, the competition between cost in the current price environment and safety or integrity.
Actually, I'm really convinced that they don't compete. So I keep using the same example. I think we are a very powerful industry, and sometimes we probably a bit overlook other industry like the car manufacturers. But the car manufacturers actually have resolved this safety cost challenge a long time ago. Our cars are better and cheaper for what they have on board, actually. I think innovation is about that, a lot about that, and it's not just technological. It can be the way of working, it can be process. I was very interested by Anna's focus on lean, actually, for example, which can be an answer, clarifying and clear and crisp process, removing the waste. So I think they don't necessarily compete, and that's probably one of the things that we need to address, actually, with our workforce, because they believe that they compete, and they feel locked into, I would say, a puzzle, and they don't see an outcome of it. I think that the cost is necessarily against safety.
And I agree with that and share that. I think if you go back to last year's conference, that was very much the topic also, given the environment we were in last year and to some extent still are this year, that it isn't a competition between cost and safety, but rather that we need the latter to ensure that we're able to deliver properly on the former. And I think it's a testament to the size of the audience here, participants here today, that we have more people attending this year than also attended last year, and that even though we're still in the middle of this crisis, we still see it as important that these events take place and that we're able to learn and share about how best we can improve on safety as a whole. Sure. So I don't see it as a competing dilemma.
Competing values?
In fact, I don't see it competing. We, like most other oil companies, have been through cost reduction programs. Yeah. And from the management team, we set clear signals from day one. Any ACC project on that platform is not going to be looked at. Yep. They were completely isolated before we looked at all the rest. And that's a clear signal, and it supports our values. And we still managed to cut costs a lot, but we did not touch the ACC projects, period.
Got it.
I agree. I think operationally, no, that the value of safety is there. I think the point was brought up earlier today around how the kind of tier 2 cost savings on travel, on courses, has made it more difficult throughout the industry to create those one-to-one links and creating that trust that's so important, particularly for corporations that are international, where you have you're reaching out to America or other places where it becomes you have to rely more on video and Skype. So it's become more of a leader challenge to maintain those networks and maintain those. So in that respect, while safety is still a value, the external pressures on the industry has made it more of a challenge to create that trust in the organization. And I think we're adapting to that and we're learning. But it is a challenge.
I try to be fair with the question because I think sometimes they compete, to be honest.
Right.
And I'm just thinking, for example, productivity or safety, or we have risk. And so sometimes you can't just solve the risk, but you put a mitigation in place, and you know that. Or sometimes you need clearly to demonstrate that you put safety before production and you shut down. Or you don't haste restarting after a turnaround. So there are situations where you look at your balance sheet and you say, I need those barrels or those million scuff, but I can't ignore what I have in front of me, and I need actually to let the people recovering safely and not putting any pressure on them. So yes, we do have those moments.
Sure.
But safety prevails because at the end of the day, we don't run sprint, we run marathon. So what you may lose a day, actually, you would probably win it 10 times on the long run. So,
sure. Got it. Gentlemen, any closing comments for the folks in the room before we wrap up?
I would say thank you so much to the organizers, of course, but definitely also to the participants. It's been very lively. There's a lot of people still sitting here. It's been a long day, and I think the way this was organized, the way that you mixed these sceneries, has helped people on their tiptoes, curious. And for that, I would like to thank everyone in here for your participation today.
Thanks, Flemming.
Yeah, likewise, I think thank you for the questions and thank you for showing up and taking that personal responsibility to enhance your knowledge about safety and taking some of that out into the industry and applying some of those learnings. I think that's great that everybody is doing that.
Yeah. Likewise, again, thank you to all for participating, also for the organizers, as Flemming said. I think this year, the 11th after the last year's 10th anniversary, is a good kick-off into the second decade, and looking forward already to next year's event.
That's my first one. Quite impressive. I really like the various angles, actually, and I was mentioning to several people that I think you don't need to be an operator or to be really deep into the oil and gas business to apprehend what was shared today. I think it can apply to a vast range of challenges we have, and safety is probably one of our biggest. And if I have just a request, if there is anything that in Maersk Oil or in the DBU we don't do safely, people can reach me.
Yeah, got it.
Thank you to you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, our country managers.